Service providers who work to prevent teens from getting addicted to opioids say this is not something that you can just teach in one health class lesson or move on. Addiction must be an ongoing conversation. That is how you save lives.
King 5's Ted Land talked with an organization working on the front lines of this problem on the Eastside. Ted, what did they tell you?
Well, Mark and Joyce, there are no doubt some difficult conversations happening between parents and teens after this news of the apparent overdose deaths. I spoke with a counselor who oversees programs in Eastside schools to learn more about the challenges they face trying to keep kids away from opioids. You've been working with youth for about 30 years. How have you seen the topic of opioids change throughout that time?
Opioids. Well, on the east side here anyway, 30 years ago, there was no use of, I don't even think that that word would have come up or anyone would have even known what that word meant back then.
Christy Nicholson is Director of School-Based Behavioral Health for Youth Eastside Services, an organization that provides counseling and substance abuse treatment for young people in East King County.
What are you hearing from these schools about the prevalence of opioids here on the East Side?
Well, I don't think that opioids are super prevalent. It's not like large numbers of students are using, and I think that's part of the difficulty.
She says opiate addiction can be easy to hide, especially if teens are taking pills, and parents might not know their child is using until they overdose.
It's an extreme risk. Other substances, have dangers for sure. I'm not going to say that they don't, and other drugs are addictive, but it is really with the opiates that you see that high possibility of both addiction, physical dependence, and this accidental overdose, and a high risk for that.
What's your message to a parent who worries opioids may be a hidden problem in their teen's life?
I would say open up a conversation, and not in kind of a intrusive grilling kind of way, but just in a kind of way of like, hey, I've heard these things in the news, I'm thinking about this. What do you know about this?
She says if you notice warning signs, raise those with your teen and see if they open up. If not, it might be time to seek professional help.
And there are specific warning signs of opioid abuse and some steps parents can take to get help. Just text the word drugs to 206-448-4545 and we'll link you to some important, trusted resources.
So Ted, are there any specific challenges that they face on the East Side when it comes to kids and opiates?
There are. While they have some really good established programs for teens like Youth East Side Services, there are not the concentration of services that they have in, say, Central Seattle. Also, they say a lot of the public dollars directed at the opioid crisis are for adult programs, not just for teens.
Wow. So tragic that these kids were killed so young.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Ted.